Hello, my name is Joshua Davis from the Office of Research at Kennesaw State University. Welcome to Research Matters, where we discuss research matters and why they matter. Today, joining us on the podcast is going to be Dr. Alan Shaw, Associate Professor of Computer Science, and Senior Willie Doyle here from KSU. Before we jump fully in, maybe let's get into a little bit of background about you, Alan. So we've noticed that you had a father that had a significant impact on your life. So can you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah, my dad was one of the first black physicists, in the country. He in the '60s was at UC Berkeley, working on his PhD.
So when did you get exposed to this path, this choice that you made to go down computer science? Was there a point in time from your childhood?
I loved it. Yeah, and high school, I was just loving computer science. We could do the dual enrollment thing. So I did courses at UC Berkeley when I was in high school.
Was that common for people to do dual enrollment back then?
Yeah,
okay.
In Berkeley High. Yeah, you could do in your senior year, you could take courses at the high school. So at the college. If you wanted to take AP, you could take an AP course, or you could take a course that's dual enrollment at the college.
And you're like, why not? Let's just go and get college going on.
Yeah, so I got some college credit.
Okay, so you graduated. Where'd you go after high school?
So I went to Harvard, and that was as undergraduate. So at the time, because I'm pretty old, they didn't have a computer science department. So I went there as a math major. I met Bob Moses there. He was critical in registering black people in Mississippi to vote. And so he's known as a freedom fighter, right? And so he, after the civil rights movement, he went into education. He was at Harvard. And I was, at that time, I was head of the Black Student Association at Harvard, and so we had him talk to the black students, and then he challenged everybody to get involved with his program to teach math. Anyway, we would go into the classrooms and that he was teaching algebra to get kids into math, because in his mind, just like civil rights, you need the right to vote. In his mind, if we don't do well in math, we're not going to be able to do these advanced degrees or do these programs like computer science, like engineering. And so he was saying that's the next step to really reform education. People talked about me in the Algebra Project as one of the first math literacy workers, which is what, I did this 30 years ago, and now this is what Willie did in our program.
So that phrase, math literacy, it
means, just like people were teaching people to read in order so they could vote in the 60s, he had like literacy workers. The idea that college students can go into the schools and teach math, get kids really literate in mathematics. And the whole Algebra Project is a program where teaching math is really about getting kids to be able to talk math. So they're not just, solving equations, but they're learning how to, there's like a 5-step curricular process. And the first step is doing something that everybody shares in, and then having the second step be you just draw pictures of it, and then you start talking about it in the third step, informally, and then formally you're making your language is starting to become rigid or what's called formal language.
Okay.
In the fourth step, but there's all this talking, and by the fifth step you're doing the equation.
So tell us more about this, because it seems like this is really something to open the eyes to a lot of children about what can be done, what's possible for them. Is that right?
Yeah. The National Science Foundation has, for a long time, realized that a lot of kids just never get a chance to get exposed to computer science, and so they can't fall in love with it, or they don't get exposed to it. So they have this CS for All grant is really, at the high school level, you're supposed to teach, basically computer science courses. But in the middle school and lower, you're supposed to try to integrate computer science into other courses, like into math or into science. So you try to you get the kids engaged in something. Math, it becomes alive. In other words, math is sort of abstract if you're just totally equations. But when you connect it to a program, it starts to move. Things start to move. And so we consider it like applied math, or, some kind of, it's math that's more engaging or interactive for the kids than this typical math they learn. And so I personally think, computer science is a natural fit as a way to help kids learn math.
let's shift a bit to Willie here. So Willie met, it sounds like Alan through school, homeschool. But I guess, Willie, why don't you share your story? Share about meeting Alan and the impact he's had on you so far.
I think when we first technically met was around 2016, I think. I was basically just starting high school, and I was involved in some of the programs that his wife was teaching and his wife was involved in. I was teaching robotics to students between like 2nd and like 8th grade. So we were teaching Lego robotics and stuff like that. And that really got me into STEM and technology and teaching. Like those are the main points, my favorite things about what I have gone into doing. So basically I was like, this is something I enjoy. And he reached out to me. He actually asked me, so I have this position open. Would you like to teach? And I taught the Summer U program. We were teaching Unity, the game development platform. And we were teaching it I ended up teaching it for 4 weeks. So we taught it to both middle school and high school students.
So the grant comes along after that program. And then I hired him for that too.
So you're teaching middle school kids Unity.
Yes.
Which that's
Right.
a big deal. That's not some easy software.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like Python code. That's some.
He was a great teacher. I thought he was my best student teacher. I had a lot of student teachers over all of these years, but he definitely my best.
So when did Computer Science for All start?
So Computer Science for All has gone on, I think, about 10 years probably. Yeah, we got our first grant. So I got a grant before Willie came to Kennesaw, which was what's called a eager grant. It's basically a grant that just gives you a chance to start thinking about what you want to do for your big grant. So when we got to the NSF, the CS for All grant, we focused on a smaller school district.
Okay.
That's in Clayton County, which is very, very. It turns out Clayton County lost their accreditation.
Really?
Because of their poverty and just lots of problems they had. They lost it in 2010. And by the time we were getting involved, they had gotten their accreditation back, but now they were really looking for help, bringing resources into their program.
So that was an opportunity for you guys to come in and contribute.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of opportunity, a lot of need and opportunity. So they got a lot of challenges, because a number of the kids are not English as their first language there.
So share a little more about the middle school students, and maybe, Willie, if you could chime in and like some experiences that you might have had where you saw like in some kid's eye, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to do computer science now.
I think the most important part of this when it comes to like the math literacy and working with these kids is showing them is one, of course, showing them that spark to be able to want to push further, but also showing them that there is no need to be afraid of math.
That's a good statement there.
Yes, there's for a lot of people, like it doesn't really matter the community. A lot of people are afraid of certain levels of math, and they're like, it's hard, it's scary.
I'm not going to try. It's scary, right? I'm not going to try.
Exactly. And so encouragement is just such an important part to it. And being able to give them basically smaller things like logic puzzles and that they're able to push and like go beyond. I've had students who have decided like after the class, they'd be like, hey, so where can I find more stuff like this? Right. What can I do? It's a wonderful experience. And especially since I did grow up in Clayton County, and I did actually.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I ended up moving away from Clayton County in 2010. I'm not completely sure, but I think that is part of the reason why.
Because of
why we ended up moving. So being able to give back to these communities and like some of these schools that are. Like not specifically the school that I went to Arnold Elementary, but I ended up working with just the school right down the street, Roberta T. Smith Elementary, and just it was amazing. It's amazing.
So how many semesters did you guys go? Like,
well, so the grant is 3 years, but we're on a fourth kind of they call it no cost extension. But so Willie has worked all of those years. So the first year he worked as a math literacy worker. Second year he worked as a tutor. So we set up this way of having an online environment. So when the kids are in there coding, if they run into a bug, they can push a button and submit their code. And the college students here can get the code right. So they don't have to be in the class with them, but college students can see the code and help them debug
That's
it online.
excellent.
So he was doing that. And now he's working on our website.
Do you have these kids working on software together? Because as you guys know, as computer scientists, that's probably the most necessary evil of working on code. So
Right. So the Algebra Project curriculum is a group. They work in small groups. And so the thing about it, too, is that the Algebra Project sees the teachers as, one type of resource, but they also want what's called a near-peer model. So they have college students come in. So because the kids, when they see younger people, they have a different relationship, right? And then the younger people enjoy the math. See, if a teacher likes the math, it doesn't necessarily convince the kids that the math is
But if Willie's smiling, you're like,
but
whoa,
if Willie likes it.
Willie's going to get a job. I want to do what Willie's doing. He seems happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's a big deal. So we really bring in the college students to help manage the small groups, because teachers, a lot of times, the Algebra Project wants these kids to do math in small groups so they can talk about it, so they can do that informal, we call it people talk and feature talk. They can do all of that in these small groups. But the teachers are usually kind of overwhelmed and not wanting to manage a bunch of small groups.
Okay.
So then the college students come in, and that's some of their impact.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple layers to it. Just to give you a sense in how it's formatted. So we have the teachers. They actually have a more lecture-styled portion of the class where they will go over basically like some of the concepts that we're doing, usually ending up with a project of some kind that they're doing at the end. When it comes to the project, that is then handed off to the college students. They are teaching about the project. They are working with the students and things like that. And just so that we don't slow down the workers who are working in class, we also have the tutors as well. So if students end up getting behind and things like that, we're able to basically catch them up with the group without sacrificing like the rest of the class.
So let me ask this question. So in Clayton County, is it 6th, 7th, 8th for middle school?
Yes, 6th, 7th, 8th.
So how many students would you say estimate that you were able to impact?
200 at a time, because we'd bring those students to Kennesaw. So I know it was 200 because we'd have to get the buses, and we'd have to fit 200 kids on a bus to come for a field trip to Kennesaw each year. So they would be able to come see Kennesaw, have fun, do some eat at the
Stinger, right? Yeah, that's right.
Yes, enjoy the college life for a day.
Well, so maybe we can kind of transition. So you guys went through this journey for 3 years,
right?
So what have you learned? And maybe what would you have done differently?
Yeah, the biggest problem was that because we moved from year to year, we got a teacher and would go through years of training, and that's when they started getting
a new teacher.
Not at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then we go to a new teacher for the next year. And so we really wanted, the way the Algebra Project works, we really needed to do 3 years at a time, and just kind of have a teacher go through 3 years of working with us, and not just 1 year of working.
Well, and that seems like the hard part of education is you can't get an outcome in a year. It takes
it doesn't magic. You can't just snap your fingers and everybody's doing something new. You got to. There's a learning curve, So that's our biggest challenge. We did see a lot of growth. And, one of the things the Algebra Project has as an example of their growth is that a huge number of Algebra Project kids become math teachers once they get through college and stuff
Makes
like
sense.
that. And so, they enjoy math more and they want to teach it after. So we saw that too. I mean, we saw that kids would love to go into computer science,
Okay, so future project you're working on now called Accessible Calculus Project.
The Accessible Calculus program. It's for high school students, and it's Willie's not actually part of that program, but he's helping us finish off the CS for All grant. But the Accessible Calculus one is trying to get kids who are in high school who won't be taking calculus in high school to get calculus concepts, so that when they hit calculus in college, they're already familiar with it and they do better. Because a lot of kids, it really turns out if you don't take calculus in high school, you're going to see it for the first time in college.
Right, I did.
And you're probably going to need to do it twice.
Well, and so I wanted to ask Willie this. So you chose computer science.
Yes.
Did you have any calc in your high school experience?
My high school experience, I was homeschooled,
Right.
and then I also did dual enrollment for a lot of courses.
Okay.
So I did dual enrollment of calculus in, I think it was my senior year.
Okay, so you got exposure through your high school experience. Like I did not. I did not know what to expect. I was interested in writing software.
Yeah.
I love game software, and that's most kids back in the 80s and 90s wanted to go into programming because of games, and now that's not a good way to go. But I look back and wonder how many of those kids, if you got exposed to calculus early on, you might realize I don't want to get into computer science. I want to go a different path. But yeah, this calculus project is intriguing to me because I feel like calculus is such a different math. It's a different literacy
really
than
is.
algebra.
But the idea there is that with the same approach where you learn how to talk math, where you learn how to engage in building things with derivatives and integrals, basically, that can be done before it becomes all this analysis that you're doing, which is what which I think a lot of kids get turned off by all of this stuff that they have to calculate and do all this analysis, whereas the kids are able to do sort of kind of create great little games and things like that using the derivatives and algorithms. I mean, the derivatives, integrals in the early years. So we basically in algebra 2 and geometry are integrating for the high school concepts that they'll see when they hit calculus again in college, but that don't look like calculus. Don't look like calculus now. To them, it's just a new way
Doing algebra.
of doing algebra.
And that's something that we talked about previously is literacy in the context of math, but for something about disadvantage. So folks that don't have the access, like my dad was a firefighter. I didn't get exposed to math concepts, but I did have one physics class in high school. It was not the calculus based. And it really changed my worldview of what's possible and why math matters.
Right, absolutely.
And that's the intent here is really is computer science exposing that view, but that's a different angle. It's like the math piece almost has to come first.
Right. So much of computer science and math is the same thing. When you think about it, we write functions in computer science, and you have to learn functions in math.
That's right.
And so the basic ideas, inputs, then something happens. Even addition is a function, right? You got two inputs, and then you pop out an output. You add the two numbers and get a number. And so in computer science, we really developed that idea, and it's more tangible because kids can build their own functions.
Yeah, having the kids basically having something to do, right? Like when it comes to math for a lot of people feels like a task, something you have to get off a checklist in order to finish stuff out.
Yeah, that's boring.
But software is so enticing because there's a world of things you could do with it, and since so many people know all the things you can do with it, it doesn't feel like learning when you're trying to push towards doing those new things, right? And I feel that is basically what the calculus program, what the CS for All program, all these programs are really trying to do at the end of the day is give these kids a goal to work towards, because children are amazing. Once you give them something that they feel like they can do, that they can work towards, they will shoot for the moon.
So Willie, so you're coming near the end of your journey. So what's the here at KSU, at least maybe for now, what's your next step?
Next step. So I'm currently looking into basically web design or software engineering positions, but I still love teaching.
I kind of assumed. I was wondering if there was a teaching master's or something else coming up.
So for me, I think I'm going to go back to my roots and teach FLL. I mentioned it before, but FLL is First Lego League. That is.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is the elementary school kids basically building Lego robots made of Legos to go and complete a bunch of different tasks. It's different. They have a different set of tasks they're doing every year, and that has been, out of every program I've taught, has been one of my favorites to teach. And I would like to teach that to basically a set of kids who they just want to do it. I don't really care about being paid for doing something like that. That's just fulfilling in its own way.
It's one of the things is at the computer science department, a lot of people are doing other kinds of research like AI and all kinds of stuff. But there's a lot of research into education going on in the CS department. And I think that is making a big impact in our state and in the, local schools here, because what we're basically trying to do is add value to our community with these education grants. And so our goal is one day to be, and I think we're seeing it. I think we're seeing the number of grants that we're getting in sort of CS education or STEM as maybe being more. I don't know if it is more yet, but it may be more than at the other colleges around the state. And we might be the center place for, really thinking about how computer science can really help build, better education.
And better communities.
Better communities, absolutely.
You've been listening to Research Matters, where we talk about research matters and why they matter. Today we had a conversation with Dr. Alan Shaw and Willie Doyle. Thank you both again.
Thank you.
Thank you.